Back once again with Taylor from the Gloucester Times, checking in on all things going on around Cape Ann, and it's getting busy. Of course, we knew this was coming. So there's a lot of stuff to report on, Taylor. You had a big story this week on the redacted investigation report going public.
Right. So after an attorney acquired the fully unredacted investigation that outlines the events that initiated 3 hostile workplace complaints filed against Gloucester's mayor, the city has now asked the federal court to keep it under wraps. The city's outside attorney filed a motion for a protective order earlier this week with the U.S. District Court, District of Massachusetts, and requesting to enter an order requiring the plaintiff to maintain confidentiality regarding the information and materials obtained in pretrial discovery and further prohibiting the dissemination of such information and materials. All that to say is that TJ Shimataro's attorney acquired a copy of the fully unredacted report after he subpoenaed the investigator Regina Ryan. So he now has the full report that everyone's looking to get their hands on. And as soon as he acquired that, the city went to the feds and said, he's the only one who should be allowed to look at this. And if he disseminates this to anybody, then something bad's going to happen. So it's kind of that interesting thing because we know that, the report is out there somewhere. And we know some of what the report says, right? We at the Gloucester Daily Times have acquired a redacted version of this report. It still has the narratives involved. We have, the exhibits, but again, there's redactions of names, of places, of people, of times. And so still trying to figure out the narrative with all these different holes in it. And when I spoke with TJ's attorney, Liam O'Connell, to see if we could get a copy of this report or what might be a part of this report, he said that after requesting a copy of the unredacted reports from the city to no avail, we finally served the subpoena on the investigator for the same, who complied. They are now 4 months later in the process of reviewing the many documents disclosed and have no comment at this time. So he declined my request to see the report or anything about it. So this is, again, an ongoing story, and we know what this investigation report kind of narrates. We know the basics, right? That the TJ, the Community Development Director, Jill Cahill, and the former HR Director, Donna Leet, all filed workplace complaints for various reasons. And I spoke with Leet and Cahill, and they both noted that they have not received an unredacted investigation report. So it's only TJ's lawyer at this time.
Interesting. All right, moving on, Taylor. There is some big news regarding the GMGI folks down in the water.
Yeah, well, I wrote this, and I'm very proud of it, of how he says Boston may be getting a taste of Gloucester, and let's just say that in this case, salty is the new sweet, which I just love those lines. They're so fun.
You're always good at that.
And I'm very excited for them. I mean, GMGI does a lot, not only for the city, but for the up and coming generations as they look to find new careers and create jobs here in Gloucester. But one of the big key aspects of that is their biotechnology academy that's been gain traction in Cape Ann. And because of that, industry leaders and developers in Boston has cited interest in having GMGI open an academy learning lab in South Boston to offer its innovative certification program, in the heart where all of it's happening in Boston. I was able to speak with the executive director, Chris Bolton, and she told me, there's a lot of potential there. There's no confirmed, we're definitely having a location there, nothing's happening like that. But she did cite that there's a lot of people who are interested. And one of those is Related Beal. For example, if GMGI were to bring an academy over to Boston, what Related Beal, this developer, is envisioning that is, that they would have this in Boston's Marine Industrial Park, and GMGI Academy would be located on the ground floor, a part of this multi-level 320,000 square foot structure with a cafe, a fitness center on the ground floor, and life and sciences space on the floors 3 to 7. The roof would feature the conference and event space, and the building would be designed as a carbon neutral project. So these are developers that are not only focused on bringing people in, but really with a focus advocating for specific careers or industries within their buildings. So that's one. There's also Massport and Lincoln Properties is also looking to have GMGI collaborate with them. So there's a couple different, people looking to connect. And, Chris was mentioning that, this might make some people nervous, is GMGI Gloucester, leaving Gloucester. But she said there's nothing to worry about. This would just be bringing the Academy Learning Lab and kind of replicating what they have here and also bringing it to Boston. And also how that would look like is, they have dreams of creating other programs here that would motivate and educate facilitators and educators who would be going to Boston. So the root systems will always be here in Boston. And she really wanted to emphasize that's their main focus. But they are excited for the potentials that are out there. And this was a fun story to write, just to learn more about what GMGI does and the importance of biotechnology in the next future.
And educating the youth going into that field and catching them early and getting them back into the marketplace pretty quickly. I think they do a great job at that. Yeah.
Yeah, what a great success story just on the waterfront and for the community in general to see GMGI do what they're doing. So great stuff, Taylor. Okay, lastly, I was on GloucesterTimes.com last night and I saw the story pop up about the strike at North Shore Music Theater. Yeah,
so this is a story written by Paul Layton over the Salem News. And, it's just a bit of a ways over the bridge. And what a really incredibly interesting story it is, because a strike by stageheads at the North Shore Music Theater forced them to cancel Wednesday night's performance of Mamma Mia at the last minute, turning away hundreds of customers who had arrived, just then for the performance. Some customers actually went in and sat down in the theater and then realized that they were the only ones there. Others were notified as they walked in. But theater owner Bill Haney had planned to go forward with the show after the stageheads had walked off the job following the matinee performance yesterday. But when the actors eventually decided to honor the picket line, he finally called it off. And, he's surprised because he's never had to call off a show. And his big mantra is, the show must go on. But in this case, it didn't. And so one of the big things that these stageheads were saying is, they're asking for a pay scale ranging from $22 to $32 an hour, and right now they're making $13.50, which is minimum wage, to $20 an hour. So quite a different, quite a jump. And so they're looking to kind of see what the future might hold. Again, this is just days after the theater opened. After the pandemic, everyone's been longing for the theater to go. I remember going there as a kid and just enjoying the incredible performances. But again, if the workers aren't getting paid fairly, the show will not go on. And so that's the question of what will it look like going forward. And Haney told Paul Layton, he's surprised because, he sees that the pay scale is appropriate for where they are. This isn't Boston or New York City or Providence. He even was quoted saying it's not a $200 ticket to Hamilton. And he said, and I quote, "I just hope I don't have to call in a wrecking ball because if they win this battle, then you close North Shore Music Theater and now it's a Walmart." So that's kind of from the theater owner's perspective of kind of how he feels about the whole thing. But we'll see what happens, right? I know they'll be doing a follow-up and we'll see more just as this, right, beloved part of the North Shore is at the risk of being put on pause for a while. And I know that they're not quite sure of how much longer they're going to be doing Mamma Mia. As we know, the next show to come up is The Christmas Carol, which is a fan favorite. So we'll see if that even happens. But again, this is just day 2 of all that's been going on there. So it's still breaking news, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Taylor, are there any quotes from the actors and in this story? Yeah, what do they have to say?
So there's a couple. So Shannon Cotter, who's a spotlight operator who lives in Ipswich, said she was making minimum wage until recently when she was giving a raise to $15 an hour. And what she said, she's like, we would like to be paid a living wage. It's a very technical and physical job, and it's not something that a high schooler or somebody off the street who hasn't had the training can just come and do. So they feel like they're not being paid, appropriately for the skills that they have gone to school for, that they've acquired through trade. And every other person that's kind of was interviewed kind of said a very similar thing. Even Gabrielle Dupoint, who's a lawyer for the Stagehands Union, disputed the notion that Haney cannot afford to give raises. He was arguing that he was explaining that Haney received about $4 million in federal and state assistance during the pandemic, and that he's taken that $4 million in government money and made sure that none of it goes to his employees. So that's what the lawyer said. So it's quite a significant amount. And I guess the question is, where did that $4 million go? Did that go to operational costs? Did that go towards future expenses? So again, the story is still developing. We'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
Great work as always, Taylor. We'll catch you next week.
See you guys.